You coached football for 30 years. At some point in that early on, did you say, I found my calling, this is what I was meant to do?
You know, I did. I tried to get out a couple times. You know, I was going to go be a businessman one time and work in sales. And it just, I was out in Colorado, we were moving, and then I made the mistake of going up to the Denver Broncos training camp. And I was like, nah, I need to get back in. And then I went to Northwest Missouri State as a graduate assistant and had a great year. And then I entered administration, and I was going to get out and be a school administrator and a superintendent and do all that. And then I got an opportunity to be a head football coach in Palmyra. So a few different times, and then I just kind of had to say, I think this is me. And you know, I may end up back there as I step away from it. I may in a few years say, holy cow, what have I done? I've stepped away from home base. And there's times I probably will feel like that here in the coming months.
Was there something about seeing that practice again that brought back a memory for you? What was it about that you saw that pulled you back in, that tugged at your heart?
I think it was everything. I think it was the idea of the teaching process and the camaraderie and what you just see out there in the teammates and the coaches, and just saying, you know, I get to be young once and I'll choose a career path. And maybe I was just I look back now and thinking, boy, the good Lord was just watching out after me that day and many days of my life. And saying, you know, let's veer you back to this place where I think you maybe serve a better purpose.
Take me to those early days at Palmyra, and it sounded like there's some pretty good rivalries there. Monroe was one of your guys, and I think I read a story that said that they hung you in effigy as you walked into the stadium. Is that at a high school game? Is that right?
Yeah, the Williams brothers, their nephew Ryan Watson, who's a principal out there, an administrator, he was a quarterback, but they were their uncles. And I used to wear a tie. I mean, I wasn't always sweater vest. I was full blown suit and tie. So there's a guy up on a tie, and they're up there and tied up to a little string. Hey, Paterno, that's what they'd call me. Paterno, look over here. This is you. We played 8 times in 4 years. We played like week 5 of the regular season, and then in the state quarterfinals. It was a great rivalry. But my first year, you know, we were 1-8, and I was like, holy cow, you know. Of course, when you're a first-year coach or when you're assistant coach, you have a lot of answers. I mean, you know what you're going to do when you're going to be in charge, and then all of a sudden you're in charge.
Move over
it's
one
like,
spot's
holy
a big
cow.
jump, right? Yeah.
So I did 2 things. I went back to Bouchard, who I could call my mentor, the head football coach in Camdenton, and I think the second all-time winningest coach in our state. And he said, jump in the car with me. We're going to go down and visit a guy by the name of Jerry Kill at Pittsburgh State. And so we went down and picked up Doug Potts at Bolivar, who's another coaching legend in our area, and we drove down and just sat for 2 days, listened to Jerry Kill talk through split back veer and the teaching process. And I think part of learning that was just how methodical things were for him. And I thought, boy, that's a teacher. I need to kind of mimic some of the things that Jerry Kill's talking about. Of course, now he's gone on and been an outstanding coach at Division I level, but I knew at the time, man, this guy's on top of his game. And he was a good friend of Bob's. And so when I went back, we went to split back veer. And then a lot of things started to come together. So we go 1-8, and then I think we were 40-8 the next 4 years. So I had a pretty good run.
What is that responsibility like, and especially because you want to get off on the right foot, and maybe there's a couple of games grace period in that first season where they go, we got a new coach, we'll give them a couple of games. That probably doesn't last very long in Palmyra, I'm guessing. But to have the confidence to know that you're going to get this thing turned around, and to have that on your shoulders, is that a tough weight to bear?
You're saying I had confidence. I didn't. I was like, holy cow, what have I done? I thought I had a lot more answers to this. But there were a couple moments that first year. There's a guy by the name, I coached his son, David Barnes, but Darren Barnes was the gentleman. He'd coached high school basketball around, and he was an assistant basketball coach at Hannibal LaGrange College, but he lived there in Palmyra, and his wife taught there. And at the end of the 6th game, we're 0-6. And he comes in and he closed the door behind me, and I'm thinking, oh, where's this going? And you know what he did? He validated me. You're doing great things. I know what it looks like. You're taking the right steps. and it was, again, it goes back to the right people at the right time who show up, and pour the right stuff into you. And I thought I needed that really bad. And here I am, 23 years later, talking about a moment in October of 1993 where a guy came in and said, "Hey, keep doing the good stuff. Keep doing the things you're doing. It's making a difference." And we were losing close games, and that doesn't make you feel any better,
Right.
but they were close, and then we won the next week, and we didn't win a district title, but you know what? Since that first year, we've been in 19 straight state playoffs, and it's been a pretty good run since then.
You had a really, really good run, not only at Staley, but at Harrisonville. 4 state championships in 6 years, 41 game winning streak at one stretch. What is it like to in a town that just embraces football and loves that team, and to ride through that wave of momentum? What was that time like?
That was pretty cool. I'd like to recapture that. That was awesome because we made 5 trips. I mean, we lost one of those games we shouldn't have lost. Still one of those games that just stabs you, and you.
But you won 4 of them.
Yeah, I know. Nobody's. Let me
away,
tell you, nobody's feeling sorry for me on that other one. That Country Day came from behind and beat us, and you know what? It was a really fun time to be in Harrisonville, and my sons were going through school. My son Kyle graduated from there as senior, so he got he was a part of that 41 game streak. We had some great kids. I think I'm sometimes the luckiest guy, Mr. Magoo, that you've ever found, and I just trip into stuff, and I think I just tripped into an awesome thing at Harrisonville, and then the kids bought into what we were selling, and the certain brand of football and a certain mentality and a certain work, and I think it was 2006, we're coming back on the bus from the state championship game, and a little sophomore kid, because most of the kids, that's the one game they got to ride home with their parents. He looks over at me and he says, "Hey, next year when we come back, can we eat somewhere different?" And I thought to myself, he doesn't know any better. And he doesn't know how hard it is to get here. And I think a coach was sitting next to me and said, "Do you want me to say anything?" I said, "No, let him dream." And then we made it back the next year. So
Did you go someplace
no,
different?
we didn't. We had a system. We have a system. And my coaches would say I'm a terrible creature of habit, and when things go well, we try to follow up on that, and so I'm one of those terrible guys. One of my coaches one time said, because I was like, "Hey, you shaved this week. What's up?" He goes, "I shaved because I don't want to end up being a freak like you." I was worried about these different nuances that you have to repeat every week. So I was like, okay.
Obviously, great success at Harrisonville. You get a great opportunity here at Staley to take over a new school and in a new program. How hard is it to leave something that you build and you get it going, but you see maybe what you could do at another place? Was that give you some heartburn over making that decision?
Oh yeah, very much so. I loved Harrisonville, and again, it probably was an unrealistic feeling, because eventually you were going to lose. Eventually, you weren't going to make it to a state championship game. Eventually, some things were going to. Eventually, that happens with all of us there, and when that happens, and somebody's like, "Well, what happened?" Is he lost his touch, and all those things are part of it. But that was a tough one. I knew starting a program from scratch was, those opportunities only come around, well, probably statewide, maybe once a year. Maybe one school opens up, whether it's Battle, Staley, Liberty North. I think Olathe East is open up next year, Lee Summit West a few years back. Greg Jones got to open Park Hill South, so there's schools that pop up, but it's just not very often. Probably isn't even once a year. So I thought, boy, if I have this opportunity, Dr. White, our superintendent at Harrisonville, had moved up to the North Kansas City schools, and it said, "Hey, come take a look at this." And then I get a chance to meet guys like Clark Mershon, our building principal here at Staley, and he talks about the dream of what he wants this place to look like. And you could kind of get excited about that moment. So this was fun. And I'm sure when I look back later, I'm again, Harrisonville, that was a run and a ride that I'll never ever forget. And Palmyra, because it was my first job, and what a fun that was for that community. But I think they'll always be a special place for Staley because it started from scratch. And I literally got to order uniforms and the helmet and decide the decals and all those little nuances that you say at one point it'd be kind of fun to do.
You get started and it's 2011. You win a state championship. I mean, I don't want to say did it surprise you, but I mean to go from scratch to the best in the state. Did you think that you'd had a chance to have that much success that soon?
I was mad we didn't win in 9. We beat Kearney in the regular season, and then they beat us in the playoffs. And then in 10, Lee Summit West beat us in the semis on a pass with 52 seconds left in the game, a fade, and beats us 17-14. So I remember those moments. I even remember the last 52 seconds as we're trying to come back, and how there's a tip ball just gets past Evan Campbell. If not, we're in the money. We're right down there close. So so we kind of thought, dang, we should have been here earlier. and I like the way our kids were thinking in that. They were disappointed that they didn't have that opportunity. But the 2011 run was a fun, cool deal. I mean, it was the first state championship for our entire school district. And it was a special group of kids who started here as freshmen. So they got when the skydivers came in and flew in the very first day this place was open, the very first practice, and we shot a videotape up on the cement wall because we couldn't get in the locker room because they didn't have keys out yet. I mean, those are the kind of things that they were a part of, and for them to see that through their senior year. So there's a lot of things out there that says, the originals on that state championship team, it was because they were freshmen that year. They were part of the original first group that went through all 4 years. And boy, there was some talent in that group, though. I mean, we'd had to mess it up they were just good. Morgan Stewart, Nathaniel Lone just graduated from Stanford and played 4 years there. It was a really special group.
I think all good coaches remember those games and coming up short and what they could have done differently. But you also, I know, take great pride in all the kids that you've coached and what they've done. Is that one of the things in coaching that kind of keeps you going? Is that you see a kid, maybe not even your star athletes, but guys that work through the program, stick with it, make it, go on to something even bigger than high school football where they were, and then come back and see you again.
Yeah. What we were talking just beforehand about a kid by the name of Rory Driscoll, who is on his 3rd year starting at Drake University. And what a great young man. And, as he doesn't start until his senior year. And at the end of his senior year, literally, we're not playing in the Dome if he's not in that role. And then he takes it on to Drake University and he works his tail off. He's named the starter in a fall practice just before Labor Day, and he goes out and 15 minutes into practice, he tears his ACL. So he starts working his way back, and he battles back. And he stops by practice every time he's around. He has surgery, he stops by. He's going back to college, he stops by. Those are the connections that you can't forget. And that happens dozens and dozens of times. As I just stepped out just for a moment for this, I have a little message from a girl track athlete I had in Harrisonville who said, hey, my wedding here, are you going to be able to attend later on here in July? And I'm thinking, I think for educators and teachers, we probably will never make the big bucks. It just doesn't happen in our world. But those are the big bucks for us. That's the fun stuff.
You had not only players, but other men who coach. And I saw a quote. This is from Kevin Miles, who took over at Palmyra. And he said, I fell in love with the game. I fell in love with what he was doing, what you were doing, and the way he was communicating, the way he treated his kids. He got me into coaching. He got me loving the job. That's going to make you feel good, doesn't it?
That's nice of Kevin.
Yeah.
God bless him there. He's done a great job at Palmyra. And he played there, and his dad was the longtime administrator, and his uncle was Missouri State High School Activities Association director, and then he was in mortuary science. He ran a funeral home, and I'm like, hey, come over here and try this out. And then when I went off and coached in college, I was like, hey, come finish your degree. And look what he's doing. So he's touching lives. He was great. Those are, again, go back to just being really blessed with the people that jumped in with me and said, hey, let's go do this together. And then you get people who say those really nice things about you when I'm not sure if I did all that. Because there's probably times he's like, oh, I wouldn't have said as nice of things when we were in the heat of the battle.
You had a chance to coach your sons towards the end of your run at Staley. How special was that for you? And two young men that, I mean, let alone the transition they made into life here, but then to be able to play football and play at a high level and go on and play in college. What was that experience like to be able to coach your boys?
It was a lot of fun. You know, I got to coach my two older sons there, Trevor and Kyle, at Harrisonville, and then Colin and Faisal here. And Trevor, his last 2 years here, he came when he was still in high school. But they're good young men, and the younger two were just, you know, they're just fast kids. So when they're young in Little League ball, they come over from Africa, and it just I think they developed even a little bit early. They haven't grown a whole lot since they were like in 8th grade. So you can imagine in 8th grade just what they brought. But they've been fun to coach. They're driven kids. They were weight room kids. I really was impressed with Faisal this year when he tore his ACL week 3. And you know, he just didn't spend much time feeling sorry for himself. He thought, how do I help make Julian Ross, who is the person who's stepping in, how do I help him, get him better, get him ready so our team can do great things? And you know, I appreciate those teammates, regardless of who they are, that pour into their team when they can't maybe help in that way. And that's where he turned it. And then the fact that he's my son and that I get to spend a lot of time with them, you know, it makes for a proud dad that does that.
You bring them from Uganda. You did not see them, though, originally. It was a class that was over there on a mission, correct?
Yeah.
You had not seen, you, as I read it, you said, find me the nicest kid in the camp.
Yeah. Kaluna was the nicest boy and these were our girls track athletes. It's, you know, I'm telling you, coaching girls, track athletes, just during that time, I think of the influence they've had on my life in that, because they went over there, these 4 girls on a mission trip, and came back and said, hey, you ever thought about adopting kids? And I thought, well, just who's the nicest kid in the orphanage? And they said it was a boy named Kaluna. And then about 3 months later, they said, hey, we have different news for you. He's got a little brother. I guess in the orphanage, they kind of make sure that let's not connect them in that way. I'm not sure why, but it's kind of what they choose to do. And he said, if you want to adopt 2, I'm like, well, go ahead. And actually, it's my wife, Michelle. She's awesome, and so she does the real work there. And she actually went over there and spent 6 weeks over there with her mom and brought him back.
Wow. And you've adopted 5 times,
Yeah.
as well as being a foster parent. Why was that important to you? Is that the coaching in you that you've got to help somebody?
Oh, you know what? It was, you could see that maybe somebody needed a little help here. and you know, when you can help a little bit, it's brought a lot of perspective to my life. And for anybody who says, wow, what an awesome thing, I think I got a lot more out of this deal than anybody. Because I got 5 great kids. And my daughter's my favorite. And I tell the boys that all the time. Yeah, she's my favorite. And they're like, "Come on!" I'm like, "Hey, it is what it is." But they're truly a blessing in our life. And for whatever we've done for them, they've returned it in different ways. I got a great on Father's Day. I'm telling you, it was the best Father's Day ever, because I got 5 texts or 5 Facebook messages or Twitter, anymore. They're going to throw it out there to the public. And I thought, holy cow, guys, I don't deserve probably this much love from you guys, but they're good kids.
You've got a great job in the district now, and really touching more lives maybe than even as a football coach. Was that hard to? Did you know it was time that you wanted to get out of coaching for a little bit? You've kind of left the door open here a little bit, though. Earlier you said maybe someday you'll get back into it. How hard was it to decide that you're going to go more into administration and not day-to-day coaching?
You know what? It was a hard decision. I knew I wanted to coach 1 more year, so I've been in this role for a year. Thankful for Dr. Clemens and some of the other folks early on who said, yeah, we can do this one time. I knew I wanted to work with Faisal through his senior year, and lo and behold, he has an injury. But those things happen. And so as they get off and get into college and start to experience that, it may be a good opportunity to step back and say, let me track them and follow them and pour into lives in a different way. and maybe serve kids in a different capacity. I'm not sure if, you know, the removal from that student part of it, it always fits super comfortable, because that's been such a part of my life for a number of years, that when you move a layer away and now you're working mainly just with adults who are serving kids. So you're kind of, you're working to help them and help them do their jobs, hopefully, and support them to do their jobs a little better. It's a little different deal.
Sure, you'll be great at it. Coach, thanks a bunch.
Thank you, Leif.
to see you.
Thanks for having me.